everyone, and welcome back to the Brightworks in another match of Beyond All Reason. Today, what I've got for you is the after party of one of our regularly scheduled streams. Now, spawning right here on the front line as a red Legion commander, a commander that goes by the name of Happiness. Aw, isn't that just lovely? Yeah, spawning as a Legion commander. This was the, as I said, the after party of the regularly scheduled streams. Those are on Tuesdays and Saturdays from 12 to 4 PDT. Oftentimes, when we're done streaming, the lobby will stay up for a little while, and so we continue playing with whatever wacky settings were enabled at the time, and I'll get right into exactly what that means here in a second. After we meet our blue team leader, who is spawning on the front lines as a Cortex commander and goes by the name of Vanaja. Well known and well feared for their sea play here, but Vanaja is going to be a landlubber, at least in this one, going into Cortex spots and going to be showing us what he's got with the geothermal spot right here. So this is a very, very powerful position. You have multiple different lanes that you're kind of in charge of contesting. It's a really, really key position. So I'm glad to see that our top level player is going to be trying to match up against some of the best. Now, what are the changes that should be instituted this match? Well, there's a few that are really important. The biggest one is that all metal extraction is multiplied by 1.5. So you can see each of these spots here is 2.4, but the actual extractor, oh, well, Legion's a bad example because they extract less metal. Anyways, here we go. 2.4 for this metal extractor, but we're actually pulling out 3.6. So every metal extractor is like that. The other one, of course, is that Legion is enabled. So there's all those Legion units. We'll get a chance to look at some of these Legion units if you're not one of the folks who tunes in regularly for the streams, but maybe you wanted a chance to see what the Legion units are about on a very high-level play field. This might be a good opportunity for you. Happiness is going to be going into some of those goblins here. Goblins, the cannon fodder unit, the scouting unit here for Legion. They have a little rapid fire machine gun mounted on top of their little Gundam bodies, and they are absolutely adorable. Probably my favorite unit model in the whole Legion kit. They're all awesome looking, but man, this one really sets the tone for all of Legion, doesn't it? It's got its little fins, its guided munitions, machine gun launchers, its little heat vents on top. There it goes, blasting away at some ticks. They're adorable, aren't they? Yeah, wonderful, wonderful little scout unit. They're also cheeky because they outrange grunts, which means that Cortex commanders actually have something to fear from the scouting units here of Legion commanders. They can just be fight commanded forward, and they will efficiently trade out against grunts, pardon me, as if they were similarly grunts trading out against pawns, right? That's the usual matchup that we see, but in this case, Cortex kind of has to play that rock, paper, scissors game. And Legion, well, yeah, you're going to be in a pretty good spot if you just spam out a whole bunch of goblins in the early game. And indeed, that's exactly what Happiness is going for. There's a couple of other niche little things about Legion as well. They have access to these, which are called overcharged metal extractors. They produce twice the metal as a regular metal extractor. So for instance, this, they would produce 4.4, but also, again, multiply that by 1.5. So they produce a lot of metal when you start to upgrade those. So one thing to keep in mind is that Legion will scale extremely quickly if they start to make that investment. But as you can see here, quite costly. 300 metal, 6,000 energy. Until you have a really solid energy economy, it's going to be tricky to get any of those up and running. A geothermal, certainly the kind of thing that could fund that sort of high energy demand. Not going to be the case, though, here. Maybe we'll see the Legion commander in red Happiness here eventually taking this geothermal. We are going to take these metal extractors at the very least. Ozlek's marching forward to claim some of these as well. Everybody dashing forward to try and get their hands on all of this, as much of it as possible. Now, there are a few other tweaks that are probably still enabled for this lobby. I didn't get a chance to check the entire lobby commands list. Sometimes they can be extremely lengthy and unparsable for the replay viewer, but anyways. One of the things that should be enabled are turbo laser cataphracts. What does that mean? Well, it's in reference to Star Wars turbo lasers, the way that they kind of fire a burst of laser energy, right? They fire like a blast. If you're looking for an in-game comparison, the Saber gunship would be sort of what you're looking for here. Oh, interesting. We're going to go for amphibious units here. Now that's cheeky. Yeah, we're going to pump out a poison arrow and eventually some salamanders as well. We'll get a muskrat for that sea to land transition here, but that is an interesting decision. I don't mind it, actually. I think the tidal speed is going to be wonderful for getting a whole bunch of energy up and running, and pumping out this poison arrow could definitely help on the front line. It has a lot of HP, it does a lot of damage, comparable to a bull, I would say. Very, very comparable to the bull. Costs a little bit more, but you get amphibiosity out of it. Is that a word? It is now. Grunts catch that resbot over there that was kind of derping around on the mountain. Just a little bit of a pathing issue right there for that resbot, but it'll mean that it does go down right here to these grunts moving in blue. Ooh, this looks like a good setup right here. I'm not sure if grunts can traverse that terrain. Looks like they can. If they move down here and manage to catch all this, this could be a wonderful engagement right here. Obviously, this is exactly the engagement you want. You want your army to be the concave going up against the essentially your army moving in this direction versus your enemy over here. That gives you a really efficient trade, essentially taking multiple 5, 6, 7 versus 1s, as opposed to a big 10 versus 10 fight. That's what I'm talking about with those goblins, by the way. You can see fight commanded forward, and it means that they end up taking down pawns, grunts, all the rest of it really, really nicely because they are outranging them, and there's nothing they can do. And just like that, there's a big old pile of corpses where once stood an entire army right here. Here's some of those new railgun modeled railgun trucks here. The Lance, the long-range skirmisher slash anti-air. They fire a big, heavy railgun shot, similar to a sharpshooter, I guess you could compare it, but obviously a lot less damage and much, much slower firing speed. Maybe not that much slower. A little bit slower firing speed. Anywho, basically meant as a poking unit, similar to the way that a missile truck, for instance, would work. Some Helios, skirmisher tanks with their little heat ray beam mounted atop their head. Love these tanks. Another one of those fabulous unit designs. You might notice they actually have the same heat ray head as the heat ray laser turret, the light laser turret of the Legion faction. God, I just love the aesthetic of the Legion. They're so cool. They've really come into their own recently, and I love the fact that they have a distinctive heat ray sort of vibe to them. That's kind of their aesthetic that they're going for. It's a lot of DACA, it's a lot of railguns and other DACA, and then of course those heat rays. Iconic. Now Salamanders here leveraging heat ray tech as well. It's Cortex heat ray tech though, so it's a little inferior to the Legion stuff. Legion kind of stole the heat ray tech and then improved on it, so now it's theirs. Salamanders. Still using some of that using the antiquated chassis of the Alligator for its durability, but the updated heat ray cannon gives it a little bit more single target damage, but also makes it a little bit better against spam as well, just because of the fact that multiple of them can concentrate on a unit if they get close enough, and then also they can sort of transfer between targets if their beam just cuts across the face of the enemy. Poison arrow's out now. And you can see another important factor about this poison arrow is the fact that it just has a gargantuan range, capable of firing away from super, super far. TNT Remmer in a little bit of trouble here. I think it's like T and Tremor, like that, you know, but it's supposed to be like TNT Tremor, sort of something like that. I don't know. I respect it. As a fellow fan of TNT, I can say certainly that that's a commendable name. No relation, just happen to share a fascination, I suppose. Yeah, heavy laser tower, not going to be much use against the Salamander here. Doing a great job of blasting all this away. Also worth noting, it does have quite a lot of AoE. That red circle right there is the AoE impulse of the heavy tank right there. And it's super, super deadly. All of those T1 units melting almost immediately. Oh, Tremor going in for the trade. Going in for the trade. Boom goes the Birdball Commander, and Xenodragon gets out of there with his life. Just barely, but with it intact. The last HP is the only one that really matters. And these Salamanders are brutal. What a cool play going for the Salamanders this quickly. We do already have a T2 transition coming up, by the way, for the Blue Commander, who put down a little bit of aggression over here and is probably planning on using the extremely high metal income on this battle setting in order to fund a T2 transition, a rapid T2 transition. Wow, poison arrows. The new wave. Not necessarily, though. Poison arrows have been powerful for a long time. They're just not as good as, for instance, 2 Tiger tanks, or 4 Tiger tanks, or 10 Tiger tanks. Spamming them out is quite expensive, and also you have access to Zars, which are arguably quite a bit better, too. That being said, it is fairly more mobile, which is something to be considered, certainly. I wonder if a poison arrow and tiger composition wouldn't work out really, really nicely. Either way here, Xeno looking very, very low in the HP department. Wouldn't mind seeing this commander maybe back off a second, just to make sure we don't accidentally detonate all of our own troops right here. Yeah, Rocketeer is continually harassing that commander. They want the kill as badly as they can. More and more Rocketeers pulled over here, yeah, so the more forces we pull in this direction, the Mighty Jet and the Blue Commander Purple, all of them contributing forces to try and shut down that tank. Eventually, they will get it, but my goodness, the trades are inefficient. Means that this northern side is completely wide open, and a bunch of grunts look to take advantage of that. A couple of Resbots up on this high ground here that are trying to blast it all down. We have the railguns out and available as well, starting to blast apart the base right here of Happiness. We do have some of those Karkinos, the dual medium weapon infantry bot. They are quite interesting. They have a little shield on them. Hold on, I want a good picture. There's one of them with its shield down. You'll see it raises its lance, and then when it cools down, it kind of, yeah, like bobs its head down. It's really fun. An adorable little unit. They also regenerate their shield, actually. While their shield is up, they take reduced damage, but once it's blasted off, then they take full damage. Kind of an interesting little gimmick that, but they also have an impulse cannon on their arm. That's the other interesting thing about Karkinos. They really are a strange bot, but I'm glad to see it. I like bots that have kind of weird little niches and utility and just random things like that. I think that adds some complexity to the game, a little bit more depth of strategy. I was debating about how we should... I was debating the idea of integrating more weapon transition switches to more units. Like, for instance, taking the missile truck and making it a button that you press in order to switch it onto the higher damage non-targeting mode. Or you could switch it onto lock-on mode and reduce the damage. That way you just have the you have the choice of whichever one you want to go for. Because you can imagine, dealing with spam, it's very useful to have that lock-on. Dealing with higher damage or maybe sieging positions, much more useful to have the higher damage mode. Yeah, things like that. Counterpoint to that was, of course, that it increases micro, and Bar is not a game that overemphasizes the importance of micro. It's important, but more so the shape of your army and keeping your engagements very clean. That's the micro that's really important and beyond all reason. Decurions here, firing away as much as they can. D-gun right there from Bear, as well as a couple of volleys from those Janices will eventually shut down those Decurion tank. Medium tanks running into the backline now. Pawn reinforcements coming out to try and clean some of this up. They get one of the tanks, and I think as these tanks start to fall and as more and more of these pawns start to come out... Oh, we need pawns, not Rocketeers. Oh, no. Yeah, T2 Lab in the way, or on the way right now for the Maroon Commander. This is not good. We're reclaiming it. Ooh, it was destroyed, not reclaimed, so the Maroon Commander lost all of that metal. That is a bummer. That was about 1,500 metal that we had invested into... Oh, a little bit of a pause right there. That was about 1,500 metal we'd invested into that T2 lab, and it just all went up in the wind right there. Very, very unfortunate. Wow, Salamander's continuing to press forward here. Venaja is on full-blown T2, trying to push this southern lane right now, but it's already too late. The Salamanders are knocking on the front door. They want in, and the Fiends are going to be the only answer we have for them. Fiends pretty good. If we self-feed them on the face of these Salamanders, maybe we can get a decent enough trade. Shuriken's not going to work out too tremendously. Trasher in the mix here as well to shoot them down. It'll get paralyzed, but Salamanders are fairly resistant, in fact, stupendously resistant to EMP. Makes them quite difficult to shut down via Shuriken, especially with any amount of anti-air present. Northern side looks well under the control right here of the blue team. The hot pink player just going ahead and putting down some landmines and porking up a little bit. Southern side right here in a lot of trouble. We're going for the T2 transition again, but of course after losing all that metal, both the players down here going for T2 transitions at the same time, not going to be very efficient. Ideally, we should both eat up our labs and funnel all the metal into one T2 lab, use that to get the T2 mexes, and then pay for the other person's T2 economy, eventually their T2 lab, all that sort of stuff. Tricky to do that, but takes a little bit of teamwork. But if you can pull it off, it can be really, really powerful. Thugs right here to try and shut down the medium tanks marching forward. They will eventually. Aggravators helping out quite a lot as well. Pawns triggering the flanking bonus there as well. Don Mateo, a Legion commander, so no D-gun. So these Janus are feeling pretty comfortable pushing into this commander right now. Yeah. It has that arm cannon, that Gatling cannon. But it's definitely not as powerful as the D-gun. There was actually talks a couple of streams ago, one or two streams ago. Anyway, we had Hornet on, one of the lead developers for the Legion faction. And they were telling us about all the cool stuff that was planned. One of them was thoughts about a D-gun. Not so much plans, I would say, but thoughts about a D-gun. Venaja's base lying in ruin. The Salamanders eventually destroying this main facility here for the blue team leader. We are left with not but a single constructor in the backline here to try and patch things together, piece all these ruins back into something useful here. Commander in orange does go down right next to the body of the blue here. You know what? We did manage to reclaim all this. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of wreckage right here, but if we can manage to reclaim this, we being the blue team can manage to reclaim all this, it's actually not the end of the world. This, though, this is a cheeky little play. Diving the tanks into the water and popping them out in the backline right here where they can go do some damage. What a cheeky little move. Gonna find the green commander's main base, main production centers over here. The blue team needs to do some counter damage immediately. We do have it. Green forces moving forward right now. Tanks being a nuisance in the backline. Salamander's pretty good at blasting apart those wind turbines. Dragging their heat ray beam across the face of all those wind turbines. Very, very dangerous. Getting in the way of production right here, too. That's quite annoying. Yeah. We want to kill this tank, but we don't have a great way to. The reclaim is certainly one option. Yeah, look at the hounds. They don't want to shoot their own facility, so they're not firing at it. Oh, that's so cheeky. That is so, so annoying. Hilarious. That tank single-handedly blocking all this. Also just farming XP, by the way. Constantly increasing the XP level. You can see it's slowly starting to fire faster and faster here. The Mighty Jat has not noticed. Oh no. This push over here was eventually cleaned up. T2 unit's going to be pumped out right here to try and keep all this nice and safe and secure. We have Vanaja slowly but surely rebuilding right now off of a single advanced metal extractor, but that's better than none. Essentially worth 4 of the T1 metal extractors, so definitely valuable. And slowly starting to rebuild back into this game. Ah, Salamander finally moved. What a bummer. Oh, there we go. It is gonna it is gonna take down the build power. Pop goes the build power, means it might finally be able to kill this facility. A hard-fought battle, to say the very least. Poison Arrow trying to pop the build power right here for the air player as well. Not gonna happen, though. And at this point, Lockdown has gotten into the fight. The Cyan Commander sending forces to the front here, jumping on top of all these Salamanders with a big ball of Fiends. Exactly what you're hoping for. Won't even mind seeing those self-destructed at this point, just to make sure we do as much damage with their death as possible. Sacrificing those Fiends, almost always worth it. Worth remembering as well that when they die normally, they do leave behind a debris still. 120 metal out of the 200 it costs to build them, but if you think that maybe they'll be ended up on the enemy side of the map and that'll be all there is to it, then almost always worth going ahead and sacrificing them. We have shotgunners here. Phalanx, as they're called, they've been renamed. Firing away their shotgun arm cannon here. Shields mounted atop their right arm as well. Shotgun held in left. Pretty good single target damage. Obviously, it's range dependent, which is kind of interesting. Ironically, having somewhat essentially the same benefits and detriments as things like, for instance, mammoths. Mammoths and sumos, where at closer ranges they do significantly more damage than at long ranges. A couple of scorpions. Gladiators, pardon me. Used to be called scorpions. Now they're called gladiators. They have multiple weapons mounted in an array on their chassis here. They've got the heavy tank body, but they've also mounted a couple of heat ray beams on top as well. Quaif, the Seafoam Green Commander, in a lot of trouble. Boom goes the Seafoam Green Commander. Beautifully done right here. This T2 transition definitely caught the poor commanders on the northern side off guard. The Striders are going to be firing their multiple launch rapid miniguns, firing a hail of Daka directly into the faces of a whole bunch of these T1 units right here. The T2 tanks even struggling against them just because that flanking bonus is immense. And with units that do high DPS, high fire rate, that flanking bonus can be extremely powerful. Gladiator is quite expensive here. 1,050 metal, which I believe is the same cost as a Tsar. Quite a bit less boom per firing as the Tsar. Here's one for comparison, conveniently. But they also, of course, have that heat ray beam. So it's interesting. They're kind of like a multi-role fighter. They can sort of handle spam. They can sort of handle basically anything that comes at them. They have the heavy impulse beam to take care of any spam, and then they have the, I guess the lasers are more for single target damage. But they are very, very cool. That's the main credit for all of Legion. Very cool. Quick shots here. Another very cool unit. They have 4 rapid-fire plasma cannons mounted on top of their chassis. Ah, you know what? Salamander's wicked powerful. Pyro table with some killer D-guns right there. The Lavender Commander blasting down a bunch of those tanks. You know what? Doing a great job. Quick shots do a huge burst of DPS and then they go on a little cooldown. One of the reasons why they're balanced, or the only way that they're balanced, is of course because of that cooldown. But they're an absolute menace on the battlefield. If you can manage to get them into an enemy line, if you can manage to get them firing on something, they can blast it apart in seconds. Strider's now in the backline right here, trying to dismantle this T2 lab. Focusing on a lot of the economy here. I think that's the right idea. Gonna find a bunch of wind turbines back here, also an excellent target. The tick spam to try and deal with them. They don't have super impressive anti-spam capabilities, so I would say tick spam will eventually clean all this up. Feels a little bit funky, but it will eventually work. All right. Now Vanaja has rebuilt here. Gotten themselves back into the game here. 2 commanders still lying in ruin on the field, so at the very least, there's some sort of hope of getting one of those back up and running and using it for its D-gun. Little surprised we haven't invested very heavily into the geothermal here. It looks like we've been handed a fusion reactor. Okay, that makes sense. Paying, maybe we paid for the fusion reactor here. I see a bunch of metal being sent around right now. All that metal being deposited all over the place. Buying fusion reactors from your teammates, definitely a good idea, especially like in this instance where lockdown is now going into advanced fusion reactors. Just pay them to have this fusion reactor. Pay them, drop 4,000 metal to them and have that fusion reactor. It can spike your economy really nicely, and of course it prevents you from having to use all your build power to build it. Geothermal in a whole lot of trouble. Bunch of flamethrower turrets. We're expecting aggression from the front. Didn't expect to be rear-ended. And just like that, with the fiends and the salamanders that were resurrected and sent forward here, shutting down a nice little chunk of the economy right now for the yellow commander. Yeah, actually a significant chunk of the economy right here. Yeah, we had the AG was the orange commanders. Yeah, the yellow commander actually really low on energy right now. 600 energy per second coming in from solar panels and wind turbines and all that sort of stuff. Definitely not enough to really keep up with the T2 era. We're going to be starting to talk in thousands at this point. Quakers on the front line here are going to be quite dangerous. They do have a heavy tank escort as well, so good on the Orange Commander Xeno Dragon here to include some of those tanks so that Fiends couldn't just jump on top of the Quakers. Oftentimes an issue that we see. There's a printer on the front lines, by the way. Always fun to see one of these bad boys out there. They're essentially a mobile build turret. You can see it popping up out of its roof right there. A mobile build turret, so they're really, really good at essentially anything that a build turret could do on the front lines, repairing, reclaiming, all that sort of stuff, except that it can move around. Makes them really, really fun to play with, especially if you go for really high health compositions, mammoths, czars, anything like that. Striders on the front trying to hold the lines here. Air forces have been pulled. Fighters going across the map, not entirely sure why. Maybe we're just using them as glorified scouting points. Trying to look around for whatever they can see. Not going to find very many fighters, though, which should be an immediate green light here for the air player right now. Yeah, we're going to go for some gunships. Bombers make a lot of sense to me right now after not seeing any fighters in the air for the red team. But certainly suffice it to say that gunships can do just as much damage if there's no air contest whatsoever. Nice self-Ds right there. Nice self-Ds right there. Beautiful self-Ds on those fiends. Do manage to do so much damage to all of these heavy tanks. Really, really nicely done. That's the kind of efficiency you get out of the fiends if you really micro your heart out with them. Not always easy to do, and it's very, very easy to accidentally self-destruct all of your fiends at the same time, blowing up your base and all the other stuff. But suffice it to say, certainly, they're one of those units that has huge micro potential. Loads of spy bots over here, not entirely sure why. Bombers coming up. Diving into the back line. What's our target? It's the Maroon facility here. Just gonna carpet bomb the entire thing. Not the end of the world, but hopefully we readjust right here to take out that fusion reactor. Okay, we're gonna go after another base over here instead. Not the end of the world. Dispersing the damage across both of these commanders is both on the southern side, so not the end of the world. But man, these bombers with no air to shoot them down, they are just going rampant in the back line right now. Another base down. Gonna bomb the Navy to land player here as well. E-converters pop all over the place. Oh, brilliant chain reaction right there. What a killer bombing run right here from the Green Commander Bear. Beautiful stuff. That's brutal. Bomber's not quite done yet. They want that fusion reactor. Plenty of them to go after. There we go. Gonna target down the yellow's fusion reactor at this point. Not gonna get it. Man, Stormbringers are pretty bad. Yeah. Not very much damage to the Stormbringers, but they do have carpet bombing potential, like that, exactly, you can see. Very, very good at taking down big areas, big wide areas of things, solar panels, wind turbines, all that sort of stuff, but certainly not super ideal for taking out pinpointed, targeted, specific structures. Spybot will be spotted here. Another one up on this high ground, though, does manage to sneak through. Are we gonna go for like a self-D up here or something? We spotted the spy bot. We have the turret coming up right now. I think, well, okay, I guess we can go for a citizen's arrest right now. I figured we would just go ahead and finish building the turret right here. I think it'll probably finish before the spy bots manage to disassemble this, or pardon me, the constructor bots manage to disassemble this guy. Shiva's marching forward right now, though. The fun thing about Shiva's is they have a backpack filled with missiles. One of their best traits. Their ability to launch those missiles over walls, past mountains, and directly into the advanced geothermal of the Orange Commander, sending it sky high and back to the Stone Ages. Definitely hurts. That was essentially a fusion reactor's worth of power right here, so significantly reducing the power output for the Orange Commander, bringing it down by about 1,000 or so. Yellow Spybot out and about right now, trying to find a decent connection. Ooh, the Grunts in the front. Ah, the Grunts do manage to... Well, actually, I think it was probably just a missed shot from the Shiva. Anywho, Spybot gets killed. That's the important thing. Demon here trying its very best, doing a decent amount of damage, but at the end of the day, more stuff does beat less stuff, as the age-old RTS motto goes. Southern side has been ravaged as well. That bombing run shutting down most of the power production over here, meaning that no more units could be produced. We do have T2 coming out of the labs right now, but it's just not coming out fast enough. And the Sheldon Ball is looking devastating. Demons marching forward right now for Cyan Commander lockdown as well. Getting on top of that T3 lab. Missiles connecting as well. Shiva's firing left, right, and center. And this is looking dangerous for a red team, right in the center of their main production hub. A red team leader trying to spam their way through this base over here. We have the long-range missile trucks firing away, or no, pardon me, missile bots firing away over here. Walking into light laser towers. Can we kill the northern side of the blue team faster than the blue players, the blue Vanaja and the Cyan lockdown can kill the entire base right here of the Orange Commander? Right now it doesn't look like it. Another fusion reactor pops. Those Shivas continuing to march forward. Second Demon coming in to reinforce. Going to start taking down the air defenses as well. Always important to take down those air defenses. Opens up the opportunity for your bombers to take advantage of your push. Went ahead, get more ahead. That's exactly what we see here. A fabulous economy set up right here by Lockdown, and using it to spam out those dual hand cannon demon flamethrower spewers of death and destruction. Shiva in the background. Back line, pardon me. Blasting apart whatever they can, ignoring the LOTs. It's like being tickled. They're just like, I think something's over there. Oh, don't worry about it. There we go. Demon washing it away. Cleansing that area of the map. And retributive flames. And now the entire blue army is sweeping northward. Oh, turbo laser cataphracts. Hold on. Hold on. We gotta get a look. Pew, 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 pew. They are really, really something else. I've been pushing hard for these to get implemented as the base design for the cataphract. It really does put them on par with the Bulwark, allows them to compete in that sense. I think they certainly have a place there. They're very, very neat. They are unintentionally really good against air, so that's something that needs to be tweaked, but aside from that, man, they are good. There you go. You can see them firing away at those planes. When they connect with them anyways, they can be really, really good against airplanes. Commander in red goes down. It's actually a little bit of a trade right there. Seafoam Green trading out for the red commander. Oh, maybe not actually. Just the red commander going down. The grenade launcher turrets firing away as much as they can. These are the Scorpion Pitbull equivalent for the Legion faction. They are, I would say, slightly worse, but also slightly cheaper. And so to that effect, you can just build 2 or 3 or 4 of them. And then you have the same effect. Demon popping all the build power though. Demons in the back line, definitely not what we were looking for. Not a happy sight at all. Does not spark joy. And these flame spewers now ravaging the build power of that T3. Advanced fusion reactor pops. And just like that, the red team is left in shambles. Oh, how quickly the turns can table. And just like that, with just a couple of T3 units on the field, some nice pushes out of the T2, and a killer bombing run from the Green Commander. I'm not sure if the Green Commander produced those bombers or just went ahead and controlled them, but either way, those Stormbringers, I mean, they just ravaged the southern side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bases they managed to take out, starting with the southern one and moving all the way up to the middle of the map. definitely opening up the lane right there for everyone on the blue team to start sweeping through, and eventually leading to total domination for our blue team. What an awesome match. Thanks a ton for watching. And again, as I said, if you enjoy these wacky settings, if you want to give Legion a try, I would definitely recommend you check out the streams Tuesdays and Saturdays, 12 to 4 PDT. And I will see you in the very next game, Beyond All Reason. Peace out, everybody.